Hey everyone, welcome back to another Explainer. So today we're diving into something I find absolutely fascinating, a really specific psychological profile. You know, society is always telling us we need this massive, bustling entourage to be happy, right? But today we're looking at the exact opposite. We're unpacking the psychology of people who only have 2 or 3 friends. If your inner circle is, well, tiny, you're definitely going to want to stick around for this, because what we're about to uncover, it completely flips the script on how we've all been taught to view socializing.
Let me just ask you right out of the gate. Do you only have 2 or 3 close friends? Think about it. If you're nodding your head right now, I just want to validate your experience right here, right now. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. Actually, you might be operating on a highly advanced emotional level. I know, too often people with really small, tight-knit circles feel kind of vulnerable or judged, like they're somehow missing this crucial social gene. But what if it's not a deficit at all?
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1. The myth of many friends, rethinking the entourage.
For decades, pop culture, social media, even our well-meaning families have pushed this incredibly heavy idea that you need a huge network to have a successful life. Which brings us to this super common equation you see all the time. More friends equals a better life. We really need to gently but firmly completely debunk this myth. Because this whole more is better narrative, it entirely ignores our actual psychological needs. Look, human beings literally have a finite amount of emotional bandwidth. When we spread it way too thin across, say, dozens of casual acquaintances, we actually end up feeling way more isolated than if we were just sitting by ourselves. More friends doesn't automatically mean a better life. Honestly, sometimes it literally just means more noise.
And that leads us perfectly to the central anchor of our explainer today, quality over clutter. Choosing to have just 2 or 3 friends is absolutely not a social failure. We really need to reframe this as a massive, empowering psychological strength. It's this highly conscious decision to prioritize deep, meaningful connection over all that superficial noise. So if this is you, you aren't failing at socializing. You're actually just succeeding at curating.
Which brings us to Section 2, defining social clutter, the exhaustion of the superficial.
So let's define what we mean here. Social clutter is the superficial, draining, and obligatory social ties that consume mental space without providing deep connection. I mean, we all know the feeling, right? The sheer exhaustion of endless group chats pinging at midnight, or those forced coffee dates where you just talk about the weather and leave feeling totally drained. That is social clutter. It's the junk drawer of our social lives. And notice the specific wording in the definition here. Consume mental space. These aren't just neutral interactions. Maintaining these surface-level ties actively drains our cognitive and emotional energy. It's honestly like leaving dozens of tabs open on your web browser. Eventually, your internal system is just going to slow down and crash.
Look at the stark comparison here. On one side, we've got social clutter, which is surface level, draining, and obligatory. And then on the other side, quality connections, deep, energizing, and authentic. It's a very distinct binary. And once you truly grasp this, you really start to see why people with small circles are so fiercely protective of their time. They are actively choosing the side of quality every single day. They want relationships that recharge their batteries, not ones that completely deplete them.
Moving on to Section 3, the power of 2 or 3, the psychological sweet spot.
Now, we aren't just talking about having a few friends in general. We're focusing on a very specific range from our source material. 2 or 3. Having exactly this many friends is not a random accident. It's not like you just couldn't find a 4th or 5th person to hang out with. For the individuals we're talking about, this specific number represents a deliberate psychological sweet spot. It is literally the exact number of deep connections a person can realistically maintain while still actually having enough energy left over for themselves, for their own personal goals and inner peace.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that this is a deliberate, psychologically healthy choice. If your circle is this small, I really want to reassure you, it is not a sign of being antisocial or broken or unlikable. No way. It is an active, healthy curation of your environment. You are essentially acting as the bouncer to your own life club, making sure that only the people who truly bring value, safety, and mutual respect actually get past the velvet rope.
Let's dive into Section 4, the psychology of quality. Why the few matter most.
Okay. So we know what social clutter is, and we know the sweet spot is 2 or 3, but what's going on inside the head of someone who operates this way? Let's walk through these psychological traits. First off, you value deep, unshakable trust. You aren't interested in fair-weather fans, right? You want people who are going to stand by you in a storm. Second, you are easily overstimulated by superficiality. Small talk doesn't just bore you, it physically exhausts your nervous system. You crave real depth. And third, you prioritize emotional safety over popularity. You would literally rather be entirely unknown to the masses, but deeply understood by two people, than loved by a massive crowd but truly known by no one. Does that hit home for you? Because it's an incredibly intentional way to navigate the world.
To put that into perspective, just look at this emotional energy allocation. You've got deep trust and quality taking up a massive 90% slice of the pie, while surface connections get this tiny, almost negligible 10% sliver. It brilliantly illustrates the laser-focused way individuals with small circles handle their emotional energy. They aren't just hoarding their love or walling themselves off, not at all. They're basically investing their energy like a master financer, putting all of their capital into high-yield, deeply rewarding assets.
And that brings us to Section 5, why less is actually more, the freedom of a small circle.
We've talked about the mechanics and the traits, but here's the ultimate payoff. Shedding that clutter fundamentally leads to immense psychological freedom. Let's walk through this logical progression. Step 1. Recognize and remove social clutter. You really have to identify those draining relationships and just gracefully step back. Step 2. Invest deeply in 2 or 3 quality bonds. Take all that reclaimed precious energy and pour it entirely into your core people. And finally, Step 3. Experience true psychological freedom. When you aren't constantly worried about keeping up appearances or pleasing dozens of casual acquaintances or managing endless social obligations, your mind just becomes quiet. You have the freedom to just be authentically yourself. Honestly, moving from clutter to quality entirely transforms your mental well-being.
Which brings us right back to our foundational phrase from the source material, quality over clutter. I really want to reiterate this one last time because it hits the nail on the head. It's the absolute core thesis of our explainer today. If you take away just one single thing from our time together, let it be this mantra. It is your official permission slip to stop feeling guilty about not being some massive social butterfly and to start feeling incredibly proud of that tight, meaningful, deeply authentic circle you've built.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this. Look at your own circle. Really look at it. Is it quality or is it just clutter? Take a little time today to genuinely reflect on who is getting your energy and whether that exchange is lifting you up or weighing you down. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this fascinating psychology. Keep curating your life, and I'll see you in the next explainer.